helps to begin with a focus for some. When beginning on the path of meditation, whether with eyes open or closed, breathing is usually the first thing we relearn how to do. We become aware of our breath once again, feeling our lungs expanding and contracting, the coolness of the air, or the damp, or the moisture of it, the dryness of it sometimes. We feel it through our noses. I prefer to breathe through my nose in meditation. It's quieter, and we also use the natural hair filters in our nose. So we can feel it tingling past those nostril hairs, down into our throat and into our lungs, feeling the expansion of the chest, the contraction of the upper back, and our diaphragm pushed down. Equally, we can acknowledge the exhalation, the warm air, again, traveling from our lungs and throat, out our noses, our diaphragms moving upwards once again, and the expansion of the upper back. We may even count our breaths in sets of 3 or 9 or 10. Again, simply focus on the breath, if you can. It's hard to not count when breathing, but if you need that focus, use it. The first few breaths we take in awareness in our meditation, these are glorious. We're fully aware in the process, feeling it going through our bodies, really engaging with what was once an automatic response to our need for air. But the novelty wears off so very soon, and our minds are so accustomed to distraction. Living with television and the internet, radio and other media, we're constantly absorbing information, doing multiple things at once, dropping one thing and immediately heading on to the next stimulus. In meditation, we learn how to be without the man-made stimulus that we have grown so accustomed to distract ourselves from ourselves. It's bloody hard. It's also really simple. And so our minds instantly wander, reliving what happened in the office today, or what our husband said to us this morning, and what we're going to have for dinner. Appointments and engagements, things to do, all these suddenly surface, and before you know it, you've lost your focus, you've lost what count you were at your breath, or you just simply lost the breath itself. So we return our focus as soon as we realize we've lost it. This happens again and again, trust me. It may happen 10 times in one session, it may happen 100 times, but it will usually happen. This is where discipline kicks in. We're not, as stated before, trying to empty our minds. For now, we're simply trying to find a focus which will lead towards a path of stillness so that we can reconnect. We're wanting to open the door to awareness, but we must focus our intent. We must grab the doorknob and turn it before we can enter into the next phase. From there, we become aware of everything that is going on around us, shifting the focus from our breath to the external world. We can carry our meditation with us wherever we go. It's not simply sitting still. You can carry it sitting here in this room right now. I'm conscious right now of my breath as I'm speaking, of the vibration in my throat. I can hear breath, people around me, the visual stimulus. I'm aware of everything that is happening in this room to the best of my abilities. But if I lose that focus, I'm not going to berate myself. I'm simply going to return the focus again and get on with it. So, going outside, we listen without judgment, without thought. We simply hear something without thinking how beautiful it is, whether if we're hearing the blackbird, oh, is it going to nest in our hedges? Is it nearly dusk? Damn, we're supposed to be going out tonight. You can see where this heads every single time. The mind grabs something, loses the focus on itself, and runs away with it. So we learn to listen without thought and without judgment, and in the springtime is the best time to do that, because all of nature is singing her glory. If we're outside, we can also feel the sunlight on our face and on our shoulders, the wind in our hair, the raindrop on our skin. Feel it without attaching to it. Like the stones settling into the depths of the pond after being thrown, so too do our bodies and souls settle after meditation. From there we can get a clearer grasp of our place in the world. Having that connection with the natural world leads us to living a more honourable and sustainable relationship with it. By taking time out to pause, to notice and honour our world, it will help strengthen and nourish that relationship. Think about the things you might do to further your connection with the natural world, and then go out and do it. You will find yourself blessed with a knowledge of richness and spirit. One of the things that we can do to see how Druidry and Zen blend with each other is we can look at the 5 noble precepts and how that connects to Druidry. The first one states, "The destruction of life causes suffering, so we learn compassion for all things and protect all that we can, whether it be the lives of people, plants, or animals. We refuse to kill or to condone acts of killing." Now, many who follow the path of Druidry are vegetarian, seeing in our present day culture no need to eat meat. The meat industry is so wasteful and so far from compassion that it's abhorrent to most, as any visit to a slaughterhouse can testify. While there are Druids who eat meat, many of them have raised the animals themselves and can vouch for the welfare. They can ensure that there is the least amount of suffering possible. More and more Druids have allotments if there's not enough space in their own gardens to grow and tend their own vegetables, and so they try to live with as minimal an impact on the environment and on the community as possible. There are also many Druids who do not condone any acts of war or violence. Druidry acknowledges the spirit that's inherent in everything, though it may find it harder to see in humanity than in the natural world around us, but we are a part of that cycle. We close ourselves off to humans in particular, for they appear to have much more power to hurt us than, say, the beech tree at the bottom of the garden, or the grass in the fields where we picnic. But by seeing that there is no other, that we are all related and connected, any act of violence is also done to ourselves. Druidry is about opening to all forms of life and seeing the sacredness in them all. And yes, even in your least favorite politicians. We never said Druidry was easy. So the second noble precept in Zen Buddhism: injustice exists in the world, and we vow to learn loving kindness so that we may work for the well-being of all, whether they be a person, a plant, or an animal. We learn the value of sharing, of helping the community, and refusing to steal or harm in any way. We can't escape it. The world is unfair. It's unjust. Many will seek out justice to right this supposed wrong. However, this justice can often be at the expense of others. We involve people in our fight for justice. I'm not saying that we shouldn't upset the apple cart every now and then, as long as it's our own apple cart. What we can do instead is to cultivate the attitude of loving kindness, which in Buddhism is termed as compassion. In Druidry, I find that the word that most fits is empathy. Much as we find ways to relate to the bee, to the ant, to our grandfather, so too should we find ways to relate to everybody in the world, whether or not they are being unjust towards us. This is not pacifism. This is taking an active role in breaching the gap between us and them. It's realizing that there is no us and them. We don't even have to like them, per se. We merely have to empathize with them. It brings a whole new worldview into focus, where we are all walking towards a path that sees the relativity in all living things. In this relativity, we will only want to do good. We will only want to help the community, and we realize that stealing from other people is only stealing from ourselves. And so while we may try to walk a mile in somebody else's shoes, therefore being a mile away with their shoes, it doesn't quite work. We can't escape injustice since we cannot escape each other. We can only learn how to live fully with empathy for all the living things. We'll have to give them back their shoes, because it's our own shoes after all. The third noble precept is sexual relationships must be treated with full respect, and we must not engage in any sexual misconduct, for this causes suffering. We must protect ourselves and others from sexual abuse and from any other sexual misconduct. Many within Druidry see a sexual relationship as a very sacred thing. It's not to be misused or abused in any way. It's also a very natural and a very human tendency to want to express our feelings for others in a sexual manner. For us humans nowadays, sex is not about procreation so much as expression of our feelings for each other. As such, we must be fully aware of each other's feelings and not hurt each other in any form, sexual or otherwise. It is paradox. It is both sacred and mundane. If we have cultivated an attitude of empathy, of loving kindness, then we fully allow others to choose their own sexual path, causing no suffering. We must also protect others who are being abused by a sexual relationship. We cannot condone acts such as pedophilia. To each their own, so long as it harms none. Whether that is a same-sex relationship, a polyamorous relationship, or even a life of celibacy, we cannot discriminate towards others in this very personal sphere, so long as there is no suffering involved. The fourth is speech is a powerful thing and words have power. We must speak with attention to what we are saying, with loving kindness, and work to resolve conflict. We must also listen with full attention to what others are saying. We live in a verbal society, and words, whether written or spoken, have power, hence the phrase, the power of the written word. We attach truth to the written word in many cases. In Druidry, we recognize the gift of speech and the power that it has. In Zen, we learn how often we simply react to a situation rather than engaging fully with it. We must think before we speak, and therefore we must be mindful of what we say. The Druids were often the resolvers of conflict in the Celtic world, and what better way than through the power of speech? Words cause conflict as much as they resolve it, and we must work towards the latter, for there is certainly enough of the former already. And the fifth noble precept is to seek out the middle way. Unmindful consumption causes suffering. We vow to create good physical health in ourselves and others by being mindful of what we eat, drink, and consume in our society to the least amount of suffering. Now, I already spoke of learning where your water comes from. This is being a mindful consumer. We also learn not to be wasteful, for that is sacrilegious in Druidry. Every disposable, non-organic diaper that's being thrown into a landfill is an affront to our Druidry. It's not only the external world around us that affects our Druidry, it begins with our own physical body. Drinking, smoking, eating, taking drugs, these are not forbidden in Druidry. It is in the excess of these things that causes suffering. Alcoholism, cancer and emphysema, obesity and addiction. We must learn to seek out a middle ground, giving us the best platform to ground ourselves and lead a fully integrated life. So this is just a very brief way on how you can start blending these two philosophies together to merge Zen and Druidry. When Zen and Druidry has entered your life, you realize that your life has already started and you must live it fully, right here and right now. That's all the time I have, unfortunately.